People think a house is made of bricks, cement, and paint. Mine was made of silence, sacrifice, and years of being forgotten. Growing up, I learned very early that love in our family came with conditions. My younger brother, Samir, was the center of everything. If he cried, the world stopped. If I stayed quiet, no one noticed. My parents never meant to hurt me, I think, but neglect doesn't need intention to leave scars. When Samir wanted something, it appeared: new clothes, school fees, extra support. When I needed help, I was told to be patient, to be understanding, to adjust. "You're strong," my mother would say, as if strength was a punishment given only to me. I moved out with nothing but a suitcase and pride that was already cracked. Samir stayed married and lived comfortably under my parents' roof. I rented small rooms with peeling walls and broken locks. Some nights I ate instant noodles. Some nights I slept hungry. I worked double shifts, weekends, holidays, anything that paid extra. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself it would be worth it. No one asked how tired I was. Years passed like that. Quiet, heavy, invisible. I watched from a distance as my family celebrated Samir's milestones. His wedding, his children, his achievements. I sent gifts I couldn't afford and congratulations that tasted bitter in my mouth. When I called home, conversations were short. There was always something more important happening on their end. Then one day I signed the papers. The house wasn't big, but it was mine. No loans from relatives, no favors owed. I remember holding the keys in my shaking hand, feeling something I hadn't felt in years: pride. I stood alone in the empty living room, sunlight spilling across the floor, and whispered, "I did this." For a moment, I believed this house would change how they saw me. I cleaned every corner myself. I chose the paint color carefully. I imagined quiet mornings, peaceful evenings, and a life where I finally mattered. When I told my parents, my mother smiled politely. My father nodded. Samir said nothing. I didn't notice the warning signs then. I didn't know that the house I built to protect myself would soon become the battleground where I would finally learn to say no. The first time they came to see the house, I thought it was a visit. I cleaned more than necessary, as if their approval could finally make the years of distance disappear. I brewed tea, arranged the cushions, and practiced polite smiles in the mirror. A part of me still hoped foolishly that they would walk in and say they were proud of me. They arrived together, my parents, Samir, his wife, their 2 children. They didn't knock like guests. They entered like owners. Samir dropped onto the sofa, stretching his legs. His wife walked through the rooms, opening doors, commenting on space. My mother went straight to the kitchen, checking cupboards, asking where I kept things. No one asked how I was. No one said congratulations. I stood there, holding a tray of tea, feeling like a stranger in my own home. "It's decent," Samir said finally, as if he were evaluating a rental. "Enough space for all of us." I laughed, thinking he was joking. Then my mother said, "You live alone anyway." Her words settled heavily in my chest. Samir leaned forward. "Our rent is too much now. We'll move here. Family helps family." The room went quiet. My ears rang. Every sacrifice I had made flashed before me. Missed meals, lonely nights, ignored calls. I waited for someone to ask if I was okay with it. No one did. I swallowed hard and said, "I'm not comfortable with that." My mother frowned, confused. "Why not?" I searched her face for understanding and found none. "Because this is my home," I said softly. "I worked for it. I need my space." Samir scoffed, "You're being dramatic." His wife's expression shifted. Her eyes filled with tears, too quickly. "Where will we go?" she asked, her voice trembling. That's when my mother's patience snapped. She stood up, hands shaking, voice rising until it shattered the air. "Where do we sleep?" The words echoed off the walls, turning my dream into an accusation. Neighbors must have heard. I felt my throat tighten, but I didn't raise my voice. "You'll find a place," I said. Like I did. The room exploded. I was selfish, ungrateful, a disgrace. My brother reminded me of everything the family had ever done for me, which, ironically, was nothing. As they shouted, something inside me cracked open and healed at the same time. For the first time in my life, I didn't apologize. I just stood there, realizing that this wasn't a request. It was an entitlement, and I finally understood. This house wasn't just mine to live in. It was mine to defend. After that day, the house felt different. The walls were the same, the furniture untouched, but something heavy lingered in the air, like a storm that had passed and left damage behind. My phone stayed silent for days, then weeks, no calls, no messages, just the familiar punishment of being ignored. I would have chased them once. I would have apologized just to keep the peace. But something in me had changed. When my mother finally called, her voice was cold. "Your father is disappointed," she said. "Samir is struggling." I closed my eyes. I struggled too. I replied, alone. She didn't answer that. Instead, the pressure increased. Relatives called, one by one, delivering the same speech with different voices. "Family comes first. You have space. Don't be cruel." None of them asked where these words were when I had nothing. None of them offered help now, only judgment. Samir came next. He stood at my door without warning, his pride wounded, his tone sharp. "I never thought you'd turn out like this," he said. "You owe us." I felt something rise in my chest. Not anger, but clarity. "I don't owe you my life," I said calmly. "I built this without you." He laughed bitterly. "So you'll watch your own family suffer." I met his eyes. "I watched myself suffer for years. You didn't even notice." His face hardened. He called me names I had heard my whole life: selfish, arrogant, ungrateful. Each word slid off me like rain. They had lost their power. That night, I sat alone in my living room. Lights dim, the house quiet. For the first time, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt earned. Days later, I heard through relatives that Samir had lost his job. Panic followed. Guilt tried to creep in, whispering that I should fix this like I always had. But I recognized the voice. It wasn't love. It was conditioning. When my mother came again, she didn't scream. Her eyes were tired. "We didn't raise you like this," she said softly. I looked at her, steady. "You raised me to survive without you." She had no answer. I didn't celebrate their struggle. I didn't mock their downfall. My revenge wasn't loud or cruel. It was quiet. It was choosing myself. For the first time, I understood that saying no didn't make me heartless. It made me free. Time passed, and the chaos they brought slowly faded. Samir's troubles didn't disappear overnight. He lost connections, struggled financially, and faced the consequences of a life built on entitlement. My parents, too, began to see cracks in the family structure they had always favored, but I didn't gloat. I didn't revel in their discomfort. That wasn't my way. My revenge had never been about hurting them. It had been about reclaiming myself. One evening, my mother came alone. She walked into the living room cautiously, as if afraid my walls might speak back at her. She avoided my eyes at first, her usual boldness tempered by humility. I didn't realize," she began, voice breaking. "I didn't realize how hard it was for you, how much you carried alone." I listened. There was no joy in her apology, only regret. And I felt no rush to forgive, because forgiveness cannot be forced. It is earned, and mine was not yet ready to be given. I managed. I said quietly, "I always have." She nodded, tears in her eyes. I was wrong. She admitted. I didn't answer immediately. I let the words hang between us. Finally, I said, "You raised him to expect everything. You raised me to survive everything, but I survived, and now I live." The difference between then and now was profound. My life was no longer dictated by their expectations. I didn't need approval or validation. I didn't need to sacrifice my peace to appease their sense of family. Slowly, the family learned boundaries the hard way. Samir came to realize that he could not depend on me, or anyone else, to carry his burdens. My parents learned that fairness is not just a word, but an action, and that neglect cannot be undone with apologies alone. As for me, I rebuilt my sense of self, brick by brick, day by day. I filled my house with quiet mornings, warm light, laughter that I chose, not borrowed. I helped my parents when I could, but on my own terms. I spoke when I wished, remained silent when I needed. The sweetest revenge is not vengeance, it is peace, it is dignity. It is knowing that you are enough, that your struggles were not in vain, and that your heart can still hold love without being crushed by expectation. I finally understood, The house I built was never just a home, it was a declaration, a safe place where my soul could breathe, a sanctuary where my worth was no longer measured by what I gave to others, but by the life I had fought for and claimed for myself. And in that house, I was finally free,